Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach, good Sabbath to you, and happy Pentecost. Happy Pentecost? What am I talking about? It's Pentecost today? Well, that's what this video is about. That it is in fact Pentecost, according to my understanding, and that's what I'm going to present to you today. We still have, well, by the time I upload this video, you'll have 2 hours left, so you can still keep it in your mind and your heart if you are led to this understanding. So it is the 50th day since the count, which is Pentecost. So I'm going to do this presentation to you, reading this email I received that really steered me in that direction. So I'm going to read this letter to you from a brother in the faith. It says here, I forgot to send my article, so I will attach it to this email. It is on Pentecost, and the evidence, the article is on Pentecost, and the evidence that supports the Greek Septuagint. So Leviticus 23:11 says regarding the Omer waved on the morrow, which is the next day of the high Sabbath, which is the first day of the feast of unleavened bread, which is the 15th of the first month. He shall lift up the sheaf before Yah to be accepted for you. On the morrow of the first day, the priest shall lift it up, which is the first day of unleavened bread, the 15th of the first month, and annual high holy day or Sabbath. And the morrow of the first day is the 16th. It's always the 16th of the first month. This is different than Roman religion. Roman religion begins on Sunday every year, their week. If a person checks, they will find many of the Sabbath keepers following the Romans' lead. They did this this year when this was sent to me, and many years they do that. Rome's special days are tied, their holy days in that religion, are tied to a day of the week, Sunday usually, and Good Friday, Sunday. They tie it to the particular day of the week. But the Christian religion's holy days, the true religion, or the true Christianity, the holy days are tied to a date on the Hebrew calendar or the biblical calendar, not a day of the week. The Hebrew calendar clearly marks the 16th of the first month as the first of the Omer count, no matter on which day it falls. Some years it does fall on Easter Sunday. There are 2 eyewitnesses that lived in the time period of the Second Temple before it was destroyed. Both of these 2 witnesses testify that the first Omer was waved on the 16th of the first month. This agrees with the Christian Bible of the early church and the Hebrew calendar. These 2 witnesses are Philo, a contemporary of Joshua, the Anointed One, and Josephus, contemporary with the disciples of Joshua, the Anointed One. The article is added on as an attachment, so I'm going to read that next. This is the letter I received from my brother in the faith. It's titled, On the Third Day, After 3 Days. This is the second time I'm presenting this. I'm doing this every year, covering this letter, because it is good to review and remind why I keep Pentecost the way I do, because it is scriptural. So, to the Christian, the central point of the entire Bible is the death and resurrection of the Anointed One, Joshua, our Passover sacrifice. Although the New Testament explains what day the resurrection was to happen, many religious leaders today seem to be puzzled by the timing of this event. Let me just move that a bit. This writer feels people today are having trouble understanding are having trouble understanding because they are trying to fit their traditional Bible, the traditional based Bible based knowledge into a document that has as its foundation the Hebrew religion that is centered on Jerusalem and its temple as its central focus. The Bible is a book written from a Hebrew perspective with Hebrew roots, and to understand it, the reader must view it from the reference point of Jerusalem. I will demonstrate this with a couple examples which most people will understand. If a person was speaking to a golfer and mentioned his eagle, people not familiar with golf might think he had a big feathered bird. But a golfer would know exactly what the person was speaking about. Also, the hockey player excited about the hat trick he had in a previous game would completely baffle the listener that is unfamiliar with ice hockey. In this paper, I will show the statements the Anointed One made about his resurrection when viewed from a Hebrew perspective. I will clear up any misunderstanding we may have had over what day the resurrection occurred, and I hope you will see when Pentecost was as well. So, in many places in the New Testament, the Bible states the Anointed One would rise from the dead the third day. And we have references there. I won't read those, but you can read them on your own time. But it is also stated that this third day would come after 3 days. Bible students that have unknowingly been viewing their Bible through the eyes of traditional Roman religion will scoff and say, if it is after 3 days, then it is impossible and too late for Jesus, Joshua, to rise on the third day. The writers of the New Testament, viewing these statements from a Hebrew perspective, did not see any contradiction in these verses. It is obvious that for all these scriptures to be correct, meaning on the third day is when he would rise, and it's after 3 days, the third day spoken of would have to be something other than a day count from the time of burial. That's a key point. The religious leaders of Jerusalem at the time of the crucifixion of the Anointed One, Joshua, they knew exactly what day Anointed One was speaking of when he repeatedly stated he would rise from the dead on the third day. The leaders only asked for the Roman guard until the third day, even though they had just acknowledged the Anointed One's own statement that it would be after 3 days. Now, this sounds like a contradiction. How can it be after 3 days, but still on the third day? So after 3 days, the Anointed One would disappear from his tomb. What did these religious leaders know that most people today in 2021 are ignorant of? The leaders knew that if the third day finished and the Anointed One was still dead, lying in the tomb, he would be proven to be a false prophet. That is what is at stake. Is he a true prophet or not? Is he going to rise or not? Is he really from God or not? So they hired that Roman guard to prove whether he was who he said he was. A person will understand this mysterious third day when they understand how God Elohim attaches Pentecost, or Shavuot in the Hebrew, to the celebration of the firstborn being passed over. The Bible and the Hebrew people attach Pentecost to the first high annual Sabbath of the biblical year, the 15th of the first month, because this is where they start counting from. So this is how we're going to find out. is today really Pentecost, Shavuot. Hebrew people count their first day on their count toward Pentecost from this first high Sabbath, high holy day, in the Passover celebration. This can be proven by a study of many of the best commentaries and history, such as Josephus and Philo, etc., and the Bible itself. Roman religion, on the other hand, attaches Pentecost to Sunday. This writer finds it very strange that many people who observe the biblical Hebrew Sabbath have also unknowingly copied Roman religion's system of counting toward Pentecost. Roman religion has not had a good track record when it comes to numbers and counting. This shows up when it comes to calculating the biblical rest day, the fourth commandment. It's the seventh day. If anyone is starting their Pentecost counting on the day that follows the weekly Sabbath in unleavened bread, that day then would be Sunday, the Sabbath of Roman religion. When a calendar is checked, it is obvious that this day is also Easter Sunday most of the time, the most important Sunday of the Roman religion. This writer has found it difficult to find any scriptural support for the method of starting the count toward Pentecost. Roman Catholics call the day Whit Sunday, but Protestants call the day Pentecost, with Sunday always being the first day in the count to 50. It can be proven which of these positions is correct by spending a short time in any city library. The Anointed One, when he was on this earth over 2,000 years ago, never criticized the temple for observing a holy day on the wrong day, nor did anyone accuse the Anointed One, Joshua, of observing holy days at a different time than the temple observed. And I have to say that is because they didn't have the Hillel 2 calendar. It did not exist yet. And they did not go into exile yet. So there's no reason for them to change the calendar. It was always based on the sighted moon and the Aviv barley. To prove which position is correct, a person only needs to go to the local library and see what system the temple used in its count towards Pentecost. When this writer checked into historians of that time period, like Josephus in the Antiquities of the Jews, Book 3, Chapter 10 and Verse 5, and Philo, the works of Philo, under Special Laws 2, the sixth festival, the beginning of the chapter, they were in perfect agreement with the Hebrew system, the calendar, and in disagreement with the method of always starting the count on Sunday, which works out to a Sunday Pentecost every year. The Bible states every matter must be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. This is biblical law. Here we have 2 eyewitnesses, Philo and Josephus, that lived at the time in question. B, we have proven already, the 2 witnesses that we have, what system was used 2,000 years ago in the New Testament times at the temple by going to the library. But what about the Old Testament? What does it have to say? I will be going back further in time. Will going back further in time to the Old Testament support the Sunday position? The Old Testament used today in our modern Bibles, the majority of the Bibles, I'd say 99%, is from the Hebrew Masoretic text. Although some people think this text agrees with the Sunday point of view, the people that compiled the Masoretic text did not seem to agree with the traditional Roman religion's way of starting their count on Sunday, because they started their count on the day after the high Sabbath of the first day of unleavened bread. This day could and does fall on any day of the week, just like any other holy day, if the postponements are waived. Those are man-made postponements. If a person consults a Jewish calendar, the Hillel 2 calendar, it can be seen that the same system of counting is used today when counting toward Shavuot, Pentecost. C. We have found by going to the library that the temple and the Yehudim of today are in agreement, and likewise the people that compiled the New Testament or the Old Testament that we use in the Bibles of today also agree, but they disagree with the Sunday position. Most people today agree that the Bible of the early New Testament church was not the Masoretic text because it wasn't put together by Jerome until the 5th century. The Bible the early church used was the Greek Septuagint text, which is a copy of the old Hebrew text that was made about 250 BC, possibly even 300 years before. If a person has any doubts about this, all they have to do is compare where the Old Testament is quoted in the New Testament and see where the quotes come from. When the Masoretic is compared against the Greek, a person will find the majority of quotes are coming right out of the Greek text. The question now must be asked, if the Bible of the early church was the Greek text, then what does the Greek text say regarding the count toward Pentecost? What does the Bible the early New Testament church used to prove all things have to say about counting to Pentecost? Leviticus 23 verse 11 in the Greek text needs no interpretation by the reader to understand because it clearly states which day to start the count by waving the sheaf or the omer. The text states, on the morrow of the first day, the priest shall lift it up. The Greek text starts the omer count on the morrow means next day, of this first high Sabbath day of unleavened bread, the first day of unleavened bread. The people of the Palestine area that looked to the temple for religious guidance 2,000 years ago always knew what the present count towards Pentecost was. Why were these people so conscious to what number each day was in the count toward Pentecost? The most likely reason would be because they were ordered to know and count in Leviticus 23, 15 to 16. These people not only knew when the first day was, they also knew the 10th, the 20th, the 34th, but more importantly, they also knew when the third day was. The chief priests and Pharisees knew exactly what the Anointed One, Joshua, meant when he said he would rise on the third day, and foolishly thought a big stone, weighing tons, and an armed guard could stop it. They only asked for a guard until the third day, even though they had just acknowledged that the Anointed One, Joshua, had said this day would be after 3 days of burial, that his tomb would suddenly become empty. There's one other place, and there could be more, that stands out to this writer of people showing knowledge of this all-important third day. Luke recorded this event in chapter 24, relaying the story of the two men heading for Emmaus. This chapter of Luke reveals valuable information. If we can only turn a blind eye to the way traditional Roman ideas have influenced us just for a moment and view what Luke is saying through the eyes of a religious Jew who worshipped God Elohim at the temple. Luke starts chapter 24 telling of the women arriving at the tomb at dawn on the first day of the week. Their intentions were most likely to apply the spices to the body of the Anointed One as soon as there was enough light, while it was still in the cool of the day. The women were told that the Anointed One had already risen from the dead sometime earlier. We find by this time on the first day of the week 3 days have already gone by since the late Wednesday burial of the previous week. So that's the fourth day. Actually, it would be the fifth day because late Wednesday would be the fifth day. This very day, verse 13, the first day of the week, the two men meet the Anointed One on the road to Emmaus. The two men make a statement that has puzzled many people ever since. This is the statement. These men said, this first day of the week also had the significance of being the third day. If a person was counting from crucifixion, which they appear to be, to someone that is not of the Hebrew religion, most people would agree that it is already into the fourth day. So why would these two men call this first day of the week, the 18th of the first month, the third day? If a person asked this question of a Jew worshipping at the temple 2,000 years ago, his answer would be, because it is the third day on the Omer count towards Pentecost, or Shavuot. The fact of this being the third day is lost by a person viewing these events through the eyes of Roman religion, or Roman Catholic religion, because this would be the first day on their count, not the third day. Is not this the third day? The very day the Anointed One repeatedly stated he would be raised from the dead? The Bible student by now should have the Anointed One's prophetic words coming back to mind. Reader, listener, is there any other day of the year that is on the third day, yet is still after 3 days of burial? At this point, I would like to take the reader back to a parallel account in the book of Esther, whom I will show was a type of the Anointed One to come. A. Esther, like the Anointed One, was willing to give up her life to save her people and rely entirely on the highest human power of that time, the king, to restore her life with the golden scepter, sign of his supreme power. Going into the king uninvited was suicide. The Anointed One, like Esther, was also willing to give up his life to save humanity and rely totally on the supreme power of the universe, God the Father, to restore his consciousness. B. King Xerxes, whose law cannot be revoked, parallels God the Father's law, Elohim's law, that stands even to the point where his own son had to die. C. The time of the year when Esther was willing to give up her life was the Passover season. Esther 3, verse 12. The Anointed One, like Esther, was willing to give up his life at Passover time. So I'm going to read Esther, just that verse. I don't believe I never read Esther before in the Septuagint. So I'm going to fact check this. I feel like it's pretty important. Okay, Esther 3, verse 12. It says here, so the king's reorders were called in the first month on the 13th, and they wrote as Aman commanded to the captains and governors. So yeah, the first month on the 13th. Wow. The message was sent to destroy the race of the Jews on the first day of the 12th month. Wow. So it is the Passover season. Literally like 2 days before Passover. And then the 13th, and we could see they were fasting before that. Okay. The Anointed One, like Esther, was willing to give up his life at Passover time. D. The Jewish people in the time of Esther were not in any immediate danger of losing their lives, although this plan was hatched at the beginning of the biblical year. It was not to come to fulfillment until the end of the biblical year. Oh, interesting. Okay, so Esther 3:7. I didn't even know about that either. The biblical year is a prophetic outline of the plan of Elohim. So let's look that up too. So 3:7. It says here, and he made a decree in the 12th year of the reign of Artaxerxes, and cast lots daily and monthly. So yeah, and the lot fell on the 14th of the month, which is the 12th month. Wow, so it did take 12 months for this to be fulfilled, this law, this plan. I should say, not law. The people for whom the Anointed One died likewise are not in any immediate danger of going into the lake of fire, because that is to happen near the end of Elohim's plan. Okay, so this comes in handy, as you can see. The people for whom the Anointed One died likewise are not in any immediate danger of going into the lake of fire, because that is to happen near the end of Elohim's plan. Okay, it's not making sense to me for some reason. Okay, so God's plan at Judgment Day, that's when things happen there. E, the plan to kill the Jews was put together on the 13th day of the first month. This meeting would have consumed pretty well all of the 13th day because of getting all the people involved together, developing the plan, translating the plan into all the different languages, deciding by lot when this plan would take place, and summoning all the couriers that would be needed to deliver the dispatch to different parts of the empire. This writer believes, because it is obvious that Mordecai would not be invited to the meeting, it would be evening, preparation day, the start of the 14th, before Mordecai would find out what was happening. The 14th day of the first month would mostly be taken up with Mordecai's weeping and sackcloth, the dialogue with Esther through her servant Hathach, and the job of notifying all the Jews in Susa, so they would be fasting together at the same time. The actual fast would not begin until the 15th and would last through the 16th and 17th of the first month, 3 complete days. So they would begin fasting on the 15th, which is the first day of the holy day. I guess we're not supposed to fast on the holy days, but they did because of that circumstance. It was they were led to do that, and they fasted for 3 days until the 15th, 16th, and 17th. So I guess until the 18th. The next day, the 18th, Esther would go into the king after the 3-day fast and be raised up by the king from her death sentence of going in uninvited. This 18th day of the first month is also the 3rd day in the count toward Pentecost. Wow. Wow, I didn't even realize this last time. The very same day as the Anointed One had his death revoked and was raised up by the supreme power of the universe. Amazing connection there. Thank you, brother. This day came after 3 days of being dead in the Anointed One's case, and after 3 days of no food or water. The Anointed One also went without food or water for the same 3 days. In Esther's case, Esther was raised up on the 3rd day. Let's look that up too. Gotta fact check this. I should just keep Esther open, shouldn't I? Esther 5:1. Esther 5. It says here, Esther was raised up on the 3rd day. Okay. It says, it came to pass on the 3rd day, when she had ceased praying, that she put off her mean dress and put on her glorious apparel. So it is the third day. And she was blooming in the perfection of her beauty, and her face was cheerful, as it were benevolent, but her heart was straitened for fear. So on the outside she looked lovely, the inside she was fearful. It was not the same. Okay, again it says here, she was raised up on the third day after 3 days of fasting. And in a similar manner, the Anointed One was raised up on the third day after 3 days of death. The only way Esther could go into the presence of the king after 3 days of fasting and still be on the third day would be if the author of Esther was using the Hebrew Pentecost count as a reference point. So is it just a coincidence that the 3 days of Esther's fast and the 3 days that the Anointed One, Joshua, lay dead in the tomb are the same 3 days on the Hebrew calendar? Both Esther and the Anointed One's personal sacrifice freed the people from certain death at a later time. In summary, the ministry of the Anointed One, when he was on this earth in human form, was primarily to the house of Israel. When the Anointed One spoke, his audience was people with a central focus on the temple, Solomon's temple, with its many symbolic furnishings and ceremonies. Actually, it would be Herod's temple, wouldn't it? These same people were schooled since childhood in the Old Testament, the Tanakh, the only part of the Bible that was available at that time, the Septuagint. If we, Bible students of today, are ever going to be able to understand this Hebrew authored document, we will have to realize it won't fit exactly into our Roman Catholic and Protestant influenced ways of thinking, or our culture in the past that we came out of. To understand the Bible, Christians of today will have to allow the mind of the Anointed One, a Hebrew of the tribe of Yehuda, to dwell in us. So that's the letter from my brother in Mashiach and the Anointed One. And so now what I'm going to do, because that has been established, that's the way to count. I'm going to now count. That's what we have to do. You have to count, prove it. Okay, so this is how we're going to do it. Again, I ask you the question, is today Pentecost? Is it really the day of Pentecost? So again, going by the Septuagint, the first day of the count would have been Friday, February 26th, which is the morrow or the day after the first day of unleavened bread. The first day of unleavened bread was Thursday, February 25th at sunset. Passover was Wednesday, the 24th. Therefore, the 50th day, and let's count to it. We have to do this. So let's count together. So the first day of the count, again, the first day of unleavened bread was February 25th at sunset, okay? So this is the first day of unleavened bread. But the count doesn't start till the morrow, the day after the first day of unleavened bread. So it's actually, that's the first day of the count. So this is 1, this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we can count by 7. So this is 14. That's 14. Moving down, this is 21. This is 28. This is 35. This is 42. This is 49 the next week. This is 49. And this is 50, beginning at sunset. So Pentecost, Shavuot, began last night at sunset. It is right now, as I'm talking to you live. This will be posted very soon, and you will still have at least an hour, depending on where you are on the planet, depending on where you are again. It will end at sunset of the 17th of April, or in the biblical calendar, at sunset of Shabbat. Okay, so yes, it is Pentecost. It is the scriptural approved calendar, Yah approved prescribed specific commandment listed in Leviticus 23. So happy Pentecost, Chag Sameach, happy Pentecost, happy Shavuot. May you all be blessed. May Yah bless you and make your way prosperous. This is my presentation on is today the day of Pentecost. I know a lot of my brothers and sisters in this sighted moon movement, this messianic movement, that this truth seeker movement will be keeping it tonight at sunset, and I respect their interpretation. I'm not going to put anyone down for that. All I ask is you respect mine too. So that's all. And I also know the majority of the world are going to be keeping it next month. So I respect that as well. Everyone learns at their own pace, and we can only do our best with the understanding that our Father has given to us. So shalom, peace and grace be to you from our Father Elohim and his Son, the Anointed One, Joshua. And with that, I leave you. This is Secrets Revealed, the Holy Bible. Until next time, may God bless you and make your way prosperous.